All right, guys, I'm out here. I was bluegill fishing with this ultralight fishing pole, and I think I hooked up with something a whole lot bigger. So I'm gonna go ahead and make this video and tell you guys how to fight a fish, especially when it's bigger. When it's a smaller fish like a bluegill or something, it really don't matter that much. But whenever you're working with bigger fish on tackle like this, it's gonna be important. First thing you're gonna notice, if you're on a boat or something, he swims under the boat. You're gonna wanna bend that rod and you're gonna wanna put the rod down. You don't want your line to hit the bottom of your boat, the bottom of the dock, whatever you're standing on. Another thing, if he's swimming left, boom, see if you can pull him to the right. Since he's probably hooked in the mouth, that's gonna kind of pull him back. It's kind of wear him out. The whole idea of fighting a fish, especially one that's pretty big, is it's just a game. It's you versus him, cat and mouse. You're just trying to wear him out a little bit. Another thing, you don't ever want to let your line go slack, because that is when if you give him a chance to shake a little bit, the hook could fall out. And the hook could barely be in him too. But with that being said, you never want to give him slack. On the opposite end of that, you don't want to pull too hard, because if you pull too hard, you could literally rip the hook right out of its mouth. And like I was saying, I was bluegill fishing out here, and I hooked up with a catfish. I didn't mean to do this. This was by accident, and it's going to make it even more important to fight this fish correctly. So I don't want to yank it so hard that it rips and pulls the fish. There's a big old catfish right there. That's actually a pretty good catfish. He's not done yet either, but we can tell he's getting a whole lot more tired, and that's good. That's good. That's what we want here. All right, what are some other things you don't want to do when you're fighting a big fish? You want to make sure your drag is set correctly. You can hear it clicking. That's the drag that's been going on. You don't want it too tight for the same reason you don't want to pull too hard. And you don't want it too loose for the same reason you don't want to let slack in your line. You want to have a nice even pressure to where your rod is fully bending and it's taking slack out like that. You don't want it to be taking out slack too early or too late. Too late could snap your line. Too early, you're not going to keep enough pressure and you're not going to be able to fight that fish. You want to put enough power to him to where it does actually wear him out. I'm sorry if this is kind of a weird video, guys. This is kind of just random, spur of the moment. I wasn't expecting to catch catfish, but whenever I hooked up on this thing, ultralight line, ultralight rod, I knew this would be a good time to kind of show y'all how to catch a fish. But here's the next question. How do you land a fish like this? In particular, a bigger one that's too big for your line. If it was a small fish, I'd just go ahead and pull him up on the bank with the line. But if I'd done that with this fish, it would break my line. Because this is probably a 4-pound catfish on 6-pound line. But if I'm pulling him up and he kicks, he's going to put more than 6 pounds of pressure on my line, and it's just going to break. So how do we do this? Well, it's not exactly easy, but we're going to figure it out. First thing, you want to make sure that old Bubba is tired out, okay? So don't worry about fighting him too fast. We can let him fight a little bit. If you have more authority, say you have a bigger rod, you can go ahead and horse him a little bit and get him on the bank. But for this guy, I'm pretty confident he's not going to come unhooked, and he's still got a little bit of fight in him. So I'm just going to let him fight. I'm not worried about it. You also want to know your fish. Catfish have really like skinny, like skin, like leathery almost mouths. So hooks stay in them really good. Something like a bass. If you hook a big old bass, you may want to try to get him in sooner, because their mouths don't hold hooks as good as if they come up shaking, they can throw the lure. This catfish didn't do that. That's another thing we got to talk about. This catfish did not do that. This catfish did not jump out of the water and shake its head. Largemouth bass do that though. So when a largemouth bass is coming up jumping, or he's acting like he's gonna jump, you want to put your rod down low to the water. You almost, if you feel him coming up, you almost want to put your rod down to try to pull him back down. Because when they jump, they don't have near the resistance to keep that lure from coming out as they do in the water. Since this is a catfish, he really isn't a jumper. It's just kind of their nature. But now, say we've wore him out, we want to get this guy off. How are we going to do it? I'm going to walk him to a place I can. Sometimes you don't have this luxury, but today I do, because I can actually walk him over there to the bank where I can get to him. That's what we're going to try to do. Now, if you're on a dock or a boat, you can just get down on the edge just like that. But I'm going to pretend I'm from the bank, and I'm going to see if I can pull him up on the bank right here. All right, KG, let's close out right here. We're going to make sure we get this guy in. If we don't land him, it don't really count, does it? Couple ways we can do this. I'm just going to slowly pull this guy. Another thing you want to be really careful of, sometimes you can do it if he's wore out enough or if your line's big enough. But you got to be careful when you grab the line and wrap your finger around it. I wouldn't wrap your finger around it at all. But you got to be careful even when you grab the line. Because if he shakes his head, your hand isn't going to bend like the rod does. See, the way that this rod bends like that actually keeps the fish from pulling the line too much at one time. It slows down the pull. So be careful grabbing the line as you're pulling in the catfish. But one thing I may do is I may reel down a little bit and see if I can pull him up on the bank just a little bit slowly. Not too hard. Make sure your line's still not gonna break. And then I'm gonna walk in and grab him. Now for this guy, I could just sit there and grab him on the mouth, or I could grab him behind the thing. But say example, I'd pull this guy in a little bit, and grabbing each fish is different, but since this is catfish, I'm going right behind the head. Boom. That's how we fight a fish. This isn't the biggest catfish in the world, guys. And even if I just reeled him in, there'd be a pretty good chance I could get him in. But when it really matters on how you fight the fish, is say if this guy was 20 pounds, and this is a bluegill pole. That's when you're going to want to really be careful about how you fight the fish. On small fish, it's not that important. But with bigger fish, you really got to pay attention to how you fight them. But hey, that's pretty fun, ain't it? If you want to learn how to unhook and hold a catfish, click right over here. Or top 5 baits for catfish, right over here.